Hello, Zero to Mastery community. I hope you're having a great day. You might have seen earlier this week that my workshop for Zero to Mastery was released. It was a designer to developer handover process. We worked with a Figma file. We built a little project. If you haven't seen it already, though, you might not know who I am. My name is Matt Studdert. I'm the founder of a platform called Frontend Mentor. In Frontend Mentor, we provide professionally designed projects so that you can practice writing front-end code. You can also submit your solutions, get feedback from the community, all of this kind of stuff. So we assume that you've built some knowledge from somewhere else, somewhere to like Zero to Mastery, for instance. And then once you're ready to just get hands-on building projects, building beautiful projects as well, then you can come to Frontend Mentor and do that. So I also teach here in London. I teach at General Assembly, kind of evening workshops and weekend boot camps and things like that, just here and there. I've taught with them now for about 5 years or so now. And I actually went through General Assembly's boot camp when I started out my development journey. So I'm really pleased to be here today. I'm really looking forward to diving into your questions. There's some great questions in there. I'm really excited to dive in. So let's kick it off with the first one. So first of all, how did you become a front-end developer? What were the best resources? So for me, I mentioned it very briefly actually just then. That I went through the bootcamp route, so the kind of in-person bootcamp route, and I went to General Assembly in London, and they're kind of very reputable company. I interviewed a few and felt that they were the best one to go for. I went through a 3-month boot camp for that, and then got a job straight out of the kind of 8 days actually out of that boot camp, which was slightly kind of mind-blowing. No small amount of imposter syndrome on my first day. But yeah, 3-month boot camp. I kind of learned a bit online as well, just to top up my knowledge. Fun fact, like Andre was one of the first Udemy instructors who I kind of bought a course for. So I've actually taken a couple of Andre's courses before. So thanks, Andre. You've helped me in my career for sure. And this is like, it's not the route that everyone might go down, kind of boot camp. Obviously, it's quite costly, but it definitely reduced the learning curve for me massively. Kind of self-teaching might take a little bit longer, and so that was a really good path for me personally. But as far as great resources, I mean, Andre's Udemy course is kind of a plug, obviously, for Andre, but you already know that he's a great instructor. But then also kind of platforms like Free Code Camp is always good, like incredible curriculum that they've got over there. And then just topping up my knowledge with blogs like CSS Tricks always has really high quality blog posts. And those were the main ones kind of back in the day. And the ones that I look at now, there's a couple of people that I really like the blog posts now, especially. So there's Josh Komu, spelled Comeau, and the content that he puts out is incredible. And then also I really like the blog posts of Ahmad Shadid as well. They're both kind of putting out lots of great blog articles. So those would be some good resources for kind of present day. So that was how I got started as a developer. Second question is, if you could go back and learn to code from scratch, starting today, how would you do it? So starting today, it's an interesting one. I would probably do the same thing that I did, because actually, like, going down that bootcamp route for me personally, I really enjoy sort of being in a cohort and being in a class. Obviously, like, people learn in different ways. For me personally, that was a really good route. So I would probably try and go down that route again. If I was learning from scratch today, though, kind of back in 2014 when I started, there was far fewer people putting out amazing content on places like YouTube and stuff. So I'll probably sprinkle in a few more YouTube videos and things like that here and there. And I would build projects as well. So I would, like, a very, very common thing is that people will get into kind of the tutorial is kind of referred to as tutorial hell, where you're just bouncing from one tutorial to another, maybe not internalizing the lessons as much as you should or could have. So I would definitely kind of be building projects as quickly as possible if I was starting to learn from today. Obviously, this is one of the reasons why I created Frontend Mentor, but it's a great way. So if you've taken a course, if you've taken a tutorial or something like that, it's an unbelievably powerful thing to just take a moment, take a little bit of time to really internalize it and just start building stuff with that knowledge, kind of using the knowledge that you've gained, especially if like there's a code along project in the actual tutorial itself. That's absolutely brilliant and that's amazing. But at the same time, try and challenge yourself to build something by yourself using those concepts that you've picked up during the class. Like that's a really, really powerful way to learn from scratch today. So I would choose to go down probably the same route if I could. For me personally, it worked well with a bootcamp, sprinkling in some incredible content, kind of zero to mastery, obviously, building projects, YouTube, all of these unbelievable resources. There's so many out there. Next question. So why did you start Frontend Mentor and what are your goals for it? So the idea for Frontend Mentor actually came out of my kind of teaching work that I was doing at General Assembly. And it was in a sense, it was my students would finish the course and then they would say, kind of, what do I do now? Like, where do I go to now practice building these projects? And my answer was always kind of carry on building your portfolio site, have a couple of side projects maybe going, maybe go over to Dribble and try and recreate a Dribble shot or something like that. But the answers that were coming back from my students were very much kind of similar, where they were saying, first of all, I'm not a designer, so anything that I build from scratch doesn't look very good. Second of all, kind of Dribble is not designed for developers to kind of pick up the work from those designs. So it's really, really hard to actually kind of find good ones to recreate. And so it kind of got me thinking. I was like, actually, yeah, this is a really good point. Why doesn't this kind of platform exist online, where you just have professional designs, the assets and everything are all chopped up, pre-optimized, everything's ready to go, the content's in the starter code and everything. And then all the developer would have to do is just kind of click download on the challenge, like choose what challenge they want to do based on their level, and then click download, and then it will just download everything. And then as a developer, you just focus on the code. So you're literally just getting hands-on, working to a professional design file. This is the stuff that you would be doing in a professional job as a professional developer. So it's literally real world experience, and it gets you kind of that muscle memory starts to improve. My goals for it. So with my goals for Frontend Mentor, like we pick up, the aim has been kind of, we pick up where other learning platforms leave off. So once you've picked up the knowledge, then you can come to Frontend Mentor to actually start building things and diving into projects and giving and receiving feedback to other members of the community. The plan for Frontend Mentor, though, is very much to start to hopefully close the gap between the time where you start to build those projects and then actually getting hired for a job. So in the kind of short to medium term, the simplest thing that we're going to be doing is putting up a jobs board for the site, but then also we've got lots and lots of plans for how we could potentially help members of our community kind of find work and get hired and all of this kind of stuff. So I'm super, super excited for all of that. and just to help the Frontend Mentor community kind of learn more and get better at actually building websites. Next question. So, do you think design should be a necessary skill for all web developers, but front-end developers to be specific? Short answer is no. I don't think that it should be a necessary skill for all web developers. Design and development are two very, very different disciplines. And by saying that all developers should also know design, then you're potentially spreading yourself way, way, way too thin. And front-end development or back-end development, I mean, there's so many things to learn just in those specific skill sets as it is, that if you then threw on top, like you need to also learn design and you need to be a good designer, then that's just potential overload is going to happen there. So I would say no, it's definitely not necessary. Is it beneficial? Definitely. Like if you are a developer who knows design, or at least knows the principles of design, and you can kind of provide a solid critique and this kind of thing, it's only going to benefit you both in job opportunities, but then also just in your work. Like when you're actually in a role, it's going to help you. It's going to help you communicate with the designers. It's going to help you build those relationships. It's going to help with the workflow in the team. So do I think design is a necessary skill for developers? I don't think that it's a necessary skill. Is it a beneficial skill though? Yeah, 100%. But don't feel like you have to become a good designer if you are a developer. Like I know plenty of great developers who are absolutely awful at design. I myself am terrible. I'm not saying I'm a great developer, but I am absolutely terrible at design. If you gave me a blank screen and told me to make something that looks beautiful, I would have absolutely no idea where to begin. If you gave me a design though and told me to build it, no problem whatsoever. Excellent. Next question. So, do you have any general tips for improving design skills, especially for developers wanting to do freelance work? So it's funny, like in the last answer, I was saying I'm not a good designer. So I'm not the best person to actually say about kind of improving design skills. Although one book, so Refactoring UI by Stephen Shoga and Adam Wathan, that's helped me out massively, especially when it comes to kind of critiquing and spotting best practice and this kind of thing. That's an unbelievable book. It's not the cheapest though, but if you can afford it, then I would 100% recommend doing that, because it's aimed at developers. So it is essentially kind of designed for developers. So it's perfect for what you need. And then also, another resource that a lot of people in the Frontend Mentor community talk about and have kind of had a good experience with is a website called Daily UI. So they set kind of daily UI design challenges. And that's probably similar to Frontend Mentor. It's probably you would need to have got some design skills picked up from somewhere else first. But then when you're ready to actually start practicing it, then that would be a really good resource. What tools would you recommend for design? Would you suggest going for Adobe products like Photoshop, XD, or alternatives like Affinity Photo, Figma, and Sketch? Whenever it comes to tooling and software choices and things like that, it's the same same for design as in development, in my opinion, whereby kind of play around with the different tools and choose which one you feel is right for you. You don't necessarily have to go with one or the other. There's plenty of people using XD, plenty of people using Figma, plenty of people using Sketch. I would recommend just playing around with all of them and then choosing one. Like for instance, we love Figma. We use Figma, and that's kind of our choice. Figma, the Figma team, the features that they're adding to improve like developer designer handover process and all of this kind of stuff. They're really, really nice, and we like that, but that works for us. So I would strongly recommend just try as many as you can. Just play around, maybe take some basic tutorials just to kind of get off the ground with them, and then make your decision like for what you feel is the best one for you. Next question. So are you hiring any developers at Frontend Mentor? If yes, or if you were, what would someone have to do to wow you into taking a chance on hiring them, even if they don't have previous web development job experience? So first of all, at the moment, we're not hiring yet. So it's only me full-time on Frontend Mentor at the moment. I've got my friend and co-founder Mike. He works full-time elsewhere. We're hoping to get him full-time on it in the not too distant future. And then at some point, though, we will 100% be hiring. And the thing to kind of to wow me or us or any other hiring manager for that matter, for me, it's like I really want to see projects. I want to see your technical choices in those projects. So a good kind of README showing what decisions you've made, why you've chosen the stack that you're using. I want to see a nice, concise kind of small commits, like nice commit history that tells a story of the project. I don't want to just see one gigantic commit at the end of the project. I want to see the evolution of the project. But then also, and this is very dependent, like obviously I'm creative front-end mentor, so I kind of would say this, but also I would love to see, and this is something that could potentially set you above other people, other candidates, see you critiquing other people's work, like displaying your knowledge, even if you're a junior, like an entry-level developer, like the fact that you might be helping other people, critiquing their work, providing feedback, code reviews, this kind of thing. There's so few entry-level developers that are doing that would just kind of set you way above the crowd. And for us, like for Frontend Mentor, for instance, we definitely recommend that the community does that. And on your Frontend Mentor profile, for instance, you see the comments that you've made on other people's solutions, so you can see your code reviews. So you'd be able to say like, oh, here's some projects that I've built. Oh, and by the way, these are some code reviews that I've done for some other people in the community. Shows my knowledge. It will also show that you are a kind of a team player and that you're happy helping others, which is always a good trait to have when you're hiring. And those would be things that I would kind of look for as to kind of wowing. Like, what are your projects? What are you doing in the community? And it could also be kind of answering questions on Stack Overflow and things like this, or doing some work on some open source projects or something like that. And it's just, what are you doing above, like to get above and beyond just the general, like I've built a few projects or I've built a to-do app or something like that. Because a lot of developers will be in that category. You need to find ways of getting yourself kind of to the next level, so to speak. So that would be my advice for that, for sure. Next question, is it worth the $10,000 or so that it costs to go to an in-person coding bootcamp? Are they online now anyways due to COVID? Yes, they are, definitely. How does that compare to online coding bootcamps like Zero to Mastery? So I've got a very, very biased opinion on this because I did go through an in-person coding bootcamp. I definitely think it's worth the money if you can afford it. It fast tracks your learning massively. It puts you in a cohort. It puts you in a class of peers. So that's your kind of immediate tech network, like going out into the world. I still speak to a number of my kind of student peers and my friends now from General Assembly. They're in the same class as me. So I think that is a great way to go if you can. However, I mean, cost is prohibitive for a lot of people. Some boot camps have now kind of flipped it, so it's like deferred payments. But at the same time, it's still quite costly. It still works out to be quite costly. So And with kind of how do they compare to online coding bootcamps? I would say there's no comparison really, because there's such different ways of learning. So in person, for me, I like the fact that I had to go somewhere every single day. I was sat in a classroom. Obviously, it's all online now, but you'll still be sat on kind of Zoom or whatever it might be every day, which probably doesn't sound like the best experience. But that's, if you want to learn in a structured way with peers, with immediate access to instructors, and you can kind of afford it and all of this kind of stuff, I'd say that the boot camps are great. But then also, if you're someone who's a self-starter, you can set yourself your schedule and everything like that, then something like Zero to Mastery, obviously online, is just absolutely incredible. The range of courses in the academy are just amazing. So yeah, they're very, very different ways of learning. If you're happy setting your own schedule and you know that you're going to be able to show up and continuously learn and this kind of thing, then that's the online route is great. But then also, if you want to be more in person, being able to ask questions, have a group of classmates and all of this kind of stuff, then the bootcamp route could definitely be for you. So many junior and entry-level developers ask for 1 to 2 years experience. Do you have any tips on how to actually get a developer job as someone with no professional experience? This is just projects, like build projects. Again, good README files, good commit history, like nice, concise commits. Make sure that they're polished, make sure that you're using as many best practices as possible. If it's front end roles, for instance, using like mobile first approach and all of this kind of stuff, nice semantic HTML markup, all of these kinds of things, and just build those projects. But then also, like I was saying earlier, try and get yourself ahead of the pack. Do things like see if you can commit to any open source projects. See if you can start answering some questions on Stack Overflow. See if you can start kind of providing code reviews for people on Frontend Mentor, so that you can display your knowledge. And then that's something in your interview, that's something tangible where you can say like, look, this is stuff that I've been doing that's above and beyond the projects that I've been doing. This displays my knowledge. It displays my temperament. It displays my willingness to help other people. And that's never, ever going to be a negative thing. So yeah, I would 100% recommend that. Those would be my tips for sure. Should I still apply for these jobs? How can I stand out and still get interviews to prove, excuse me, I would be a great hire even without the 1 to 2 years experience? So first of all, yes, still apply for the jobs. Anything that's asking maybe for like 1 to 2 years experience, even if you've got no years experience, if you can prove that you can do the work that they will want you to do, then that shouldn't be a barrier. So I would just apply anyway. My opinion on this, and it's just my opinion, but my opinion is that the worst position you can be in, the worst thing that can happen is that they say no, and hopefully they give you some valuable feedback. And then you can take that feedback into the next application. As long as you might need a bit of a thick skin to do that, being like taking the rejection it is tough, like it is very hard. But at the same time, I would start applying before you think you're ready. And also I would apply for jobs that you think that might be slightly, you wouldn't obviously apply for a senior role or a midweight role if you had no professional experience. But if they're asking for 1 to 2 years experience and you haven't got that, then I would still apply. As long as you have done all of the other things that I mentioned, you'd still be able to prove that you'd be able to do the work for sure. What do companies typically look for when hiring entry-level developers? So this is like a lot of the time with entry-level developers, people and companies would want to see that you can kind of write some code, obviously. But at the same time, it's very much to do with your passion, your interests, how you're going to work in a team, all of this kind of stuff. So it's very, personality based as well. In that, like, will this person fit within our team? Do we think they're going to be a good teammate? All of this kind of stuff. So, because at the end of the day, the skills and everything can be taught, and you would expect a company who is hiring entry-level developers to have a very well-structured training program. So those skills will come, and normally it's more a case of like demonstrating, like, okay, here's a few projects and here's some extra stuff that I've been doing. But then also, like, this is me as a person, these are my interests, hobbies, this is what I'm going to bring to the team, I'm a self-starter, all of this kind of stuff. So that's a big thing that companies will be looking for. What is more likely to help me get a job interview? For a web development position, an active GitHub profile or a really nice portfolio website with lots of projects. Portfolio website with projects would be my answer there. An active GitHub profile. If you've got projects on GitHub, that's great. And if you're building projects anyway, those projects would typically be on GitHub. But don't worry too much about kind of just constantly being active on GitHub. That's just a recipe for burnout. I don't like the heat map and all of that kind of stuff that's on GitHub, because it kind of pressures people. Like, people feel pressured into making commits every single day and all of this kind of stuff to show that they're active. I would much rather see just a nice portfolio with some really well presented projects with some nice kind of descriptive text on technical choices and all of this kind of stuff. With so many languages, skills, and tools out there within the tech industry, and it's constantly changing as well, how do you choose what to focus on learning? Just focus on the next step. Like, that's all you need to focus on. Don't worry about everything else that's happening. Just focus on the next thing. For instance, if you're learning CSS and you're comfortable with Flexbox and everything, but you haven't learned Grid yet, then go for Grid. Like, just do that. If you're learning sort of JavaScript, focus on the fundamentals of JavaScript. Make sure that you've got the fundamentals, like a solid understanding of the fundamentals. And then at that point, you can start to focus on like playing around with some frameworks and all of this kind of thing. Like, there's always a new toy, some new hype around something or anything like that. I'd recommend just kind of doing, just focusing on what's next, and just don't put too much pressure on yourself as well. And just be patient, kind of chip away at things, and you'll be good. Next up, do you have any tips for staying motivated and committed when things are getting challenging? So I'm a massive kind of advocate of balance. A lot of people, like, you'll see kind of out on Twitter or anything like that, it seems like people are just constantly going and doing and learning. And it can be quite stressful, because it feels like everyone knows absolutely everything about everything, and we only know like a tiny thing. And it can be extremely stressful. And so you might get into this habit of like trying to keep up with everyone else and trying to push forward. But that's, again, it's kind of a recipe for losing motivation, because you'll start to resent the process, and also you might burn out, and that's not fun in any way, shape, or form. So as far as staying motivated and committed goes, I would advocate variety in your life. So obviously many of us at the moment, unfortunately with lockdowns, there's not a huge amount of variety. I'm definitely yearning for a bit of variety in my life, kind of getting outside, doing some activities, all of this kind of stuff. But like having some hobbies, making sure you're kind of finishing your work or your course or anything like that, just doing it in bite-sized chunks, all of this kind of thing, I think are really, really important. Because then they will just help keep you motivated, because then you'll be excited to get back to learning. You'll be excited to get back to coding, all of this kind of stuff. Whereas if you're just focused purely on that one thing, then it could get a bit tricky. So is it possible to change careers to become a developer or programmer, even at the age of 40, 50, 60? Yes, that's an easy one. Definitely never too late whatsoever. Programming is just an unbelievable skill. You don't need to be a certain age. You don't need to have a certain background or anything like that. It's open to everyone. And that's one of the things that I love about it. How much time should I spend studying on a daily or weekly basis? Any suggestions on how to split that time up between things like tutorials, coding challenges, projects, recruiting? This is very much like a choose your own adventure type thing, where I would just try and stick to it, like try and create a schedule for yourself. So try and keep it structured. If you don't set a schedule, it's very easy to just kind of miss sessions and relax a little bit too much, and then you get a bit disheartened by it. So I'd set a schedule, try and stay on that. I wouldn't want to prescribe anything on a daily or weekly basis because it's very personal. So find what works for you. Play around with it a little bit. 1 week maybe do a bit more studying, 1 week do a bit less. Like 1 week maybe do a few more challenges, 1 week do some tutorial work and all of this kind of stuff. Play around with it, find the balance that works for you. Definitely doing kind of tutorials 100% of the time is not a good thing. You want to be building those projects as well. You want to be taking coding challenges, things like code wars and stuff like that. Get the logic-based kind of side of your brain going and all of this kind of thing. That's brilliant. But just play around with things and experiment with frequency and duration and type and all of this kind of stuff, and then just find what works for you. So as someone who is currently a full-time developer, what are the best ways to level up my career as quickly as possible? So showing that you're a great team player, like if you're a developer, kind of moving up, you're going to be taking on more and more responsibility. Different companies have different progression routes, but at the same time, just showing that you're a team player, that doesn't necessarily mean that you take on all the work and you get overworked in the end. That's, again, a recipe for burnout and disaster. But just helping out wherever you can. If people need a developer to pitch to a client or something like that, just be like, yep, I'll do that, no problem. Then that, like, taking on a bit more responsibility here and there, wherever you can, that's great. And also just leveling up your skills. Continue learning. Like, there's so many developers that once they're professional developers, they kind of just stop that learning process. A lot of the time it happens more than you would expect. So keep on learning. Places like Zero to Mastery, obviously Frontend Mentor for building projects. And if you wanted to try and learn a new thing like Vue or something like that and play around and build a project in Vue, then you could just do that. So just a bit more responsibility. Like I said, don't try and burn out or anything, though. Don't take on too much responsibility, but then just continuously level up your skills. And also with your employer, make sure that they know that you want to keep on progressing and leveling up your skills and all of this kind of stuff. The fact that they will know that you want to get to the next level, every employer will be very, very happy for their employee to be sat down in front of them saying, like, I really want to be as good a developer as I can. I really want to progress in this company. Kind of, how can I do this? What do you want to see from me in order for me to get to this next level? And just be as open and transparent about it as possible. Amazing. So that's actually the last question. And I really hope that you kind of enjoyed that and you got a lot out of it. If you've got any other questions for me as well, feel free to just put them in the comments and I'll kind of answer them after this workshop. Like, absolutely no problem whatsoever. And lastly, if you want to improve your coding skills, obviously we've got the Frontend Mentor community is ready for you. We've got free challenges, we've got premium challenges, all of this kind of stuff. I'd love to see you there. It would be absolutely brilliant. Also, be sure to check out my Zero to Mastery workshop as well, talking about the designer to developer handover process, working with a Figma file to actually kind of build a project. And yeah, it was really fun recording it, and I really, really hope you enjoy it. So have a great time and enjoy the rest of your day. And it's been an absolute pleasure answering your questions. Take care.